Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with a showdown between the Sons of Sigmar and the Dinosaurs. So it is going to be Horsemar the Grim facing off against Tic-Tac-Toe. So certainly some very alternative lord choices going on here. But yes, Volkmar is going to be on horseback, and I decided to try this out to see if having him on a more mobile mount option, moving with the Knights of the Blazing Sun instead of kind of being anti-infantry piece, would be very effective in terms of his buffs. So it should be quite a bit of fun. Obviously, don't see him off his altar too often. I think we did see it actually in some tournament recently. I can't remember who it was, but front line's going to be Swordsman. We're going for an all-out rush. This has been a matchup that I've actually been struggling to win quite a bit, so I really figured let's go off the rails. Let's try something really extreme and see how it works out here against the Dinos. So our battle line is going to be 4 Knights of the Blazing Sun, just with Swordsman, basically. So the whole point is just run over the front line, right? Get in there, run over the Saurus, run over the Skinks, use our heavy cavalry really just to do a ton of shock damage. We have a light caster as well. Knights of the Blazing Sun, of course, do like healing, but having the Baroness Time Warp in the nets to lock down Chameleon Skinks I thought could be useful. On top of that, we do have 3 Outriders to deal with armor and a single Pistolier just for utility because we only had like 500 gold left after all was said and done. So for my opponent's army, the Great Yamai is here. He does have Chameleon Skinks in the front, and this is a pretty cool build for sure. He actually has triple Temple Guard, which I don't think is fairly standard here in this matchup. And I have to say, when I saw that, I saw the front line. I was like, okay, Saurus, we got Feral Cold Ones, a lot of stuff that I can handle very easily, but the Temple Guard are going to be the biggest problem. However, if I can deal with most of the infantry and then use my my Outriders with the long rifles here to shoot into the Temple Guard, hopefully that will be enough armor piercing to bring them down. But yeah, fairly common stuff in the Chameleon Skinks. Tic-Tac-Toe, obviously a little bit of a meme, but he is very cheap and allows you to get things like triple Temple Guard. If you had a more expensive Salon, for example, you probably would not be coming in with triple Temple Guard, which is going to be pretty good against my Knights of the Blazing Sun, but we shall see. The battle is underway, and the Skink Chief here are going to be bravely advancing in. Look at this hero of the Lizardmen, people. Yeah, Skink Chiefs, of course, have a ton of ammunition. Looks like 80 shots, no biggie. Each one of those picking off one of my swords, and pretty unfortunate stuff. But we are going to be going for a full frontal charge here. So Knights of the Blazing Sun, Lance's Couch, baby! A nice Sigmarite charge right there into the Saurus. Pretty cost effective for sure. The HP of those Saurus buckling very quickly. We're going to be doing the same thing on the other side as well. So the Knights of the Blazing Sun will be hammering the Saurus on the flanks. The Spearmen and, the Swordsmen will be unfortunately left to fight the Saurus on their own. But Knights of the Blazing Sun, great weapon strength at 42, able to really get in there and do some work against those Saurus units. And as we rotate back to the epicenter of battle, Volkmar the Grim dropping a Soulfire Bombardment, actually doing some really good damage against those Temple Guard there. I always assumed it didn't really do great damage against, heavily armored targets like Temple Guard, but that actually seemed to be okay. Wyson's Wild Form going down here in the front for the, I was about to say the Beastmen because I'm so used to that lore of magic with the Beastmen, but the Manticore Summon is active now and probably is going to be going after Volkmar. On his horse, he only has 50 armor actually, so he's fairly squishy in terms of like comparing him to his altar state. And here in the backfield, we do also have Knights of the Blazing Sun hammering down the Saurus here with some Chameleons moving out as well, but the whole idea was to use my cavalry just to overload this flank, and so far it's working out pretty well. The Saurus here buckled down. There are no Temple Guard nearby, so the Knights of the Blazing Sun should be able to just push in quite happily into this flank and do their business. In the front, Volkmar the Grim helping the Sigmar Sons fight against the Temple Guard in a pretty even fight, which is very good, considering Sigmar Sons are quite a bit cheaper. So Volkmar's stuff there, his buffs and various goodies that he does bring to the table here for Sigmar, are doing some great work. Now, one aspect of my army that's pretty much doing nothing is basically my Outriders. I've been trying to get in position to shoot, but there's these weird hills and slopes, so I can't quite get in position here. You see a little bit of a miss micro allows my Outriders to get caught up in the hill there, but I have not been able to get good focus fire with my Outriders, which is a little bit unfortunate. Now here we do have a nice catch. Horsemar the Grim on Volkmar. He's going to be jumping in and going after the Skink Priest of Beast, and he hits relatively hard. He's got 380 weapon strength, pretty much the same as like an Archlector, and we're basically just punching into these characters here. And we are a little bit behind on the bounce, but I think the fact that we do have the Skink Priest here as well as Tic-Tac-Toe does give us some opportunities. The Pistoliers here are going to be ripping shots into Tic-Tac-Toe, and Volkmar gets in there to duel him. Tic-Tac does have good armor piercing values, but overall his armor is very low. His HP pool is also quite low. And Volkmar the Grim able to get in there and really give him a righteous hammering. So there goes your sweet Prince Tic-Tac-Toe. Good night. Farewell. Probably will come back though, so it's not going to be the last we see of the Dreadmaster Tic-Tac-Toe. Baroness Time Warp going down. I'm going to be giving a big multiplying effect of the Baroness Time Warp here. So the melee attack buff 64 and 64. Certainly getting some good damage, but with the Temple Guard, the elite of the elite, for the Lizards piling in with their halberds. Something very cool about Temple Guard is it kind of serves as a dual-purpose great weapon and halberd unit. They do have faster attack rates in comparison to other halberd units, so they can kind of work well in the front line as well as against cavalry and monsters. So I'm going to pull back at this point. Obviously, I brought mostly a Swordsman front line, so the Swordsmen aren't going to be super durable in the long game outside of the Sigmar Sons. We have done some pretty good damage against the Lizard army overall. In the backfield, I was doing a little bit of harass. Feral Cold Ones battling my cavalry. He did kind of forget about the Feral Cold Ones for a period of time, but they ended up getting into combat there and helping to deal with my Knights of the Blazing Sun and are now being escorted back by some Temple Guard. So game is pretty even, honestly. I have a lot of mobility. I have my 4 Knights of the Blazing Sun, I have Volkmar, and now we finally get some good Outrider position. So the Outriders are sitting up on the hill, using their armor-piercing shots here into the Temple Guard, which are going to get bombarded once again by a Soulfire. That actually did some super good damage. Oh my god, that was like 800 damage. Really, really good stuff here from Horsemar the Grim. So you guys are starting to see, right? Like his mobility, he can kind of get around, but it is a double-edged sword. Him on a horse, he can also get trapped a lot easier. For example, if I found my way into the middle of a Temple Guard unit, I probably wouldn't be able to push out, whereas on his Pimp Guard, it's a whole different beast. So Temple Guard taking some nice armor-piercing shots from the Outriders up on the high ground. Granted, I didn't see this at the time, but I still am a little bit obstructed here. They can't quite shoot down and get those really good shots. Here we do drop a net of Amentok on the Temple Guard, which we're pressing into my Swordsmen, basically just buying time to reform ranks while Volkmar the Grim unfortunately just gets stuck in the middle of a Saurus unit. A little bit trapped up here. I can't remember if I was giving attack animations or what, but yeah, he's got regeneration, and that's one of the things, right? If you're going to be using a caster that isn't Lore of Life, it's really nice to have things that don't require healing like Volkmar, but this is very, very scary, and the game was pretty much dead even up until Volkmar getting caught here. So Volkmar gets caught by the Saurus Warriors and the Feral Manticore. I'm also pinned in by Chameleon Skink, so if I try and escape, I'm going to be taking a ton of poison. Volkmar should be able to get away here, but ultimately that blunder right there did put us in a pretty precarious situation, because aside from that, it's a pretty close game. If we had just been careful with Volkmar, you know, kept him with the main army, fight on the outskirts of the battlefield, use these Soulfires when they're off cooldown, I think we would have been in a pretty decent position. Though we do get Tic-Tac-Toe in response. Tic-Tac-Toe probably costs like 700 gold, and it doesn't really matter if we get him. That's kind of the funny thing about characters like Tic-Tac-Toe. Even if you lose them, you don't really care that much. It's not like he was doing anything. I would imagine Tic-Tac probably has less than 500 value as well. Let's go ahead and look here. Tic-Tac-Toe, yeah, he's at 180 right now, so pretty brutal for that guy. So now there's going to be a little bit of Benny healing, because I do sacrifice my Pistoliers to try and free up Volkmar, who's being chased down by the Velociraptors. In the meantime, over here, we have a little bit of skirmishing as my Knights of the Blazing Sun do charge in. I net down the Temple Guard, trying to lock them in place, allowing some Knights of the Blazing Sun to slip in and go after the Chameleons, but it ended up being a little bit of a disaster. The Chameleon Skinks are a very tough unit to chase down. You really need to make sure the stars align and that you can net them, and the net on the Temple Guard was okay. You know, the Outriders blasted in there pretty good, but Balance of Power is almost point of no return, as the Lizards have kind of taken over the game. Volkmar the Grim here in the distance is certainly in a very grim position, to say the least, and is going to be running, being chased down by the Velociraptors. My Pistoliers do move in to fight the Velociraptors there, and they do buy some time for Volkmar to come back. Now, Volkmar does rally here, and I was like, wait a second, is there a glimmer of hope? As he does fight the Feral Cold Ones, whose leadership is at 0 at the moment, so should be able to break them off. So he's fighting them, and now he's going to be kind of charging past the Temple Guard. Does get caught by the AI there, but now he's going to be moving away. But it was too little too late. Well played to my opponent. It was a good game for sure. Very, very scrappy. And honestly, the build was okay. It was interesting. The triple Temple Guard really caught me off guard. It gave him this like nice anchor that I couldn't shot cavalry down. Most of the time, in my experience in this matchup, it's mostly Saurus and Skink cohorts. Very heavily focused on Skinks, actually, and then backed up by, you know, a multitude of different dinosaurs and things like that. So I think this build actually could be pretty good against traditional dinos without the Temple Guard, but the Temple Guard really did catch me off guard and was a very, very strong pick there from Yumai's for sure. It was fun. Definitely 2 off-meta builds via Horsemar the Grim and Tic-Tac-Toe. At least Horsemar was able to get, you know, 1,200 value and more or less paid for himself. I think he costs like around 1,500 gold in that. I can't remember quite what it was. Now, what would I change in retrospect? I'd probably cut 1 Outrider. Let's actually go to the drawing board. Although, yeah, I got to give this build more of a chance against other Lizard builds. But in theory, it has the answers to deal with most things. Granted, the 1 Nightmare unit you can't really deal with. Hands down, the best unit on the Lizardmen roster are the Chameleon Skinks. Empire doesn't really have a good way of dealing with them. You can, like, chase them with State Troopers is one way, but usually your State Troopers are losing against Lizard Infantry. Oh yeah, Chameleons are just so damn powerful, and I've really been struggling in this matchup quite a bit. So I'm going to keep kind of testing things out, trying different builds. I'll, of course, report back to you all once I find some goodies here, but I mean, yeah, I think the Quad Knight of the Blazing Sun is pretty decent. 1,200, 12, I mean, like, yeah, they all did good. Even the one that kind of got shut down did okay. I think the Knights of the Blazing Sun are really good at clearing out Saurus. You can see the Saurus lines really got buckled pretty heavily here in the center. Volkmar, I think maybe just putting him back on his altar is objectively better. Then you're going to have more bullying tools against the Temple Guard. Like, he can get in there and really, really give him the business. So maybe you just cut the Pistolier, get the altar, call it a day. And possibly change the Lore of Magic. Lore of Fire, I'm not a huge fan of against Lizards. Maybe go for, like, Lore of Manticore summoning. With Flock of Doom, I guess that's okay against Mass Infantry. there's a couple of ways you can experiment there. Honestly, a Deathcaster wouldn't be terrible either as an insurance policy against elite infantry with Fate Abuna and stuff like that. All right, guys, well played. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. We'll see you back with more replays soon. And that is it for now. Take care.